Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Warriors Season 3, Episode 7. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with kind of like the smaller storylines in this episode, kind of some updates to some circumstances. I love it when your boy Happy Jack rolls in into Abigail's and be like, kind of like, let's celebrate and stuff like that. And basically, it's kind of like, what happened to Lee? It's like, it was only going to end one way. The moment you got in bed with like a cop or something, it's like, whatever the thing is, we all have to face our consequences. The moment those words left his lips, I was like, oh boy. And then Lee comes out. I was like, yeah. I thought that was beautiful. And then Xiao steps out too. And he's like, what are you going to do, copper? And it's like, well, for one, first, you're making a mistake because he's not really a cop right now. I mean, to be fair, he is a Secret Service agent, technically speaking. But I love that it's like, Abigail's like, he's not the one that's going to do something. Pulls out the shotty, blasts him, and then Chow's the one that got to finish him off. And it's like, I was like, yo. Because we have no idea what the ramifications of that going to be. I guess as long as they kill Happy Jack and dispose of the body, then it's not going to be an issue. You'd assume his men would be worried about it, but I guess it's like as long as they dispose of the body and no one is the wiser, then no one's going to trace that back to them. So, but yeah, Happy Jack gone, and I think the whole situation got Lee thinking, especially what happened with what happened, with his family. Like I said, it left him conflicted. Some of his family he didn't care about, but once again, like his cousin Carter, like I believe that was his cousin's name, the one he actually cared about and felt bad about killing. It's like he tried to talk him out of it, but it's like that really messed him up, and so he. And the way he talks about it later on, he's like, I don't have to worry about my family anymore. So I'm like, I guess any of your family that would come after you is now dead. Because he's like, once again, it seems like his parents are still alive. At least one of them is. I don't remember his circumstances, but the way his aunt was talking about, I think like how his mom was broken heart. Like I think both of his parents are still alive. They won't be sending people after him, but the bounty is still there. But there's no one that's going to be personally coming after him the way that like I said, that bounty's still out there. It's probably still. Who's going to pay it though? Because that was probably like mainly his aunt who put that bounty out for him. I'm sure the cops, like police, would put that out there. So, but. No family members are going to be I don't know. That I could be completely wrong in that. Maybe the bounty does disappear now that they're dead because they're the main ones putting it out there and want to pay for it. But it's still out there, so bounty hunters might come after him. But it's kind of like, for what purpose? You won't get paid, but So maybe that is kind of a moot point. I figured it would be, but I didn't know how much other family was out there left to do it. But it's like, right, the people who wanted revenge are gone now, so I guess. The rest of his family are just kind of, it's like, I'm never coming back to Georgia. They're never going to find me and see me again. So it's whatever. So, but obviously Lee can't just walk away from everything because he tries to turn it in his back. Because someone kept saying like Mosley was alive. I didn't believe them. I was like, he caught a bullet. He's definitely dead. Nope. That bullet, not grazed, that bullet ripped through his face. Not a lot, but it definitely left a pretty deep scar. He's like, I've suffered worse. But Lee's like, I don't need this badge anymore. Your promise was to like basically protect me from my family, and my family's no longer going to be an issue. So, but it's like, no, but the murder charge is still there. So that's why I'm like, the bounty's gone, but it's still the murder situation. So. And that's kind of ignored the fact that you stacked a couple more bodies on top of that. But, that's kind of a point that no one's going to find out about. So we'll kind of leave it at that. So Mosley's kind of like, you don't get to just walk away. So Lee's kind of getting dragged back in. It's like, this isn't a badge you're going to be able to just put down. You're going to take it back and you're going to keep working with me. I'm going to actually be able to make those charges disappear. But you're going to have to work for me. And it's like, to be fair, Lee is very good at what he does. So Mosley's kind of like, I'm not going to let you go. I got a job to do that was bestowed upon me by the President of the United States. And we're going to see this through. So we'll see how that plays out. Lee's reluctancy in all of this. Especially because I skipped over it, but he had a really interesting conversation with Abigail. I believe that was beforehand. I don't think that was after. I believe that was before. She told him what happened with her husband, Wes. It's like, Happy Jack has always been the self-serving person, but that was never my husband. He was a good guy. The fact is, he always worked honest work. It wasn't always paying well, but he worked at the docks, but he was an honest worker. Then some white boys started some shit. It was 4 against 1. Both sides were bloodied. And when the time came, the cops didn't want to hear anything he had to say. Of like, I was just defending myself. They jumped me. It's like, right, he's a black man, so we can't take his word. And they tried to arrest him. And the moment he resisted, they shot and killed him. And you're like, sounds sadly all too familiar. It's one of those things in life where you're like, man, how much things have changed, and sadly how much things haven't changed. So, but it's like, yeah, he was a good person and he didn't deserve that. And for her, it's like, that's why she started working with Happy Jack when he offered her a job, because it's like, you have to be cruel in a world that, like, there's no playing nice, because nice guys finish last. Like, there's no point in playing the role of a good person when this cruel world will beat you down time and time again. So you need to be cruel. That's the only way you're going to be able to survive in this world. And so what that means for Lee, who's always been a good, honest person, who's always, yes, he's done things. Because even Abigail, because he had asked, like, oh, do you regret, like, killing Happy Jack? And she's like, no. Wes was kind of cut way too short from this world. And she's like, from my perspective, Happy Jack got a lot more time than he deserved. So she ain't going to be worried. Ain't no love lost in that situation. You were family. You were family, sure, but I never cared about you. I only cared about you because of my husband. Other than that, like, and now the other man in my life, you basically showed him up the river. Nah, fuck you. Bam. You know, that was not an issue for her. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the aftermath of, like, will that have any ripple effect, in the grand scheme of things. Like I said, like, I'm sure someone else is just going to step up to fill that void in his operation. But like I said, we'll see. Other than that, we catch up a little bit with Bill, who thought he was going to be in a more managerial standpoint, more so like looking at the books. But it's like, no, so there's no nepotism involved. Like, I've got to, like, start you from the bottom. So he's working. And yes, most of the workers on the ground floor are younger than him, half his age. So he's like, yo, I'm older. Like, of course they're going to be able to do more work than me. But he's like, he's trying to put a smile on his face because it's kind of a douchey, like, his brother-in-law knows what he's doing, but it's like, don't worry, I'll do better work tomorrow. He's like, that's good, Bill. It's just kind of almost like pull yourself up by your bootstraps type of conversation. So Bill's not going to complain, but he's sore. I think it's, they made a point to show you, like, your boy's ripped. Your boy's got some muscles on him. Because I was like, I mean, we've seen Bill without his, is this the first time we've ever seen Bill without his shirt on? I'm trying to think. I think even when, like, I think even the time we saw him have sex with Lucy, like, I think he had his shirt on, I think, if I remember correctly. Someone's like, I feel like we never really get to see Bill without his shirt on, so to see him, like, it was like, yo, your boy, really good shape, understandably, and he's trying not to complain to Lucy, because it's like, right, this is what he wanted. He's finally got his family back, and he's happy, but even she's trying to be like, hey, I'm trying to nudge my sister to get Horace to kind of hurry up and move you up the ranks. So we'll see how that plays out. But Bill is just kind of like, right, it sucks, but it is what it is. And I'm not going to complain. I got my family back. The work sucks, but, as long as I'm able to kind of, like, work a job that I'm able to stay alive in, we'll see. I don't think Bill's going to work that for too long, because eventually he's just going to get fed up and tired of it. But it's like, it is a thing of working that job and dealing with it. It's going to be it's going to be a big part of keeping his family. So that's going to be the motivation, but eventually that might not be enough, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how how that all plays out for Bill going forward. So on the other side of things, on the Chinatown side of things, there were these guys that ended up getting arrested because they went into Chinatown and tried to steal food because they're struggling themselves. They got arrested, which I'm surprised the cops arrested them, but I guess it's like, you break the law, you break the law. Like, Bill and maybe Flanagan, definitely Bill, would have probably let things slide, but not Atwood, because for him, he's very like by the books. I mean, to be fair, he's a complete another like overreaching, like powerful douchebag. Like, let's not mince words. Let's not get it twisted. Because you could tell, like, he doesn't like being put in this, like, obviously, like, Mosley kind of sunned him in that conversation of, like, you'll do what I tell you to do with a smile on your face. After he ended up sunning Bill. So it's that thing of, like, he's a control freak, and it's like, I want things the way I operated them. Even though, because I'm curious, like, does he bend to, Buckley's will? It seems like he's kind of just doing his own thing. I don't know if how much of that's just like, oh, I'm just doing this because it's the letter of the law and I'm very steadfast in that belief, and so I will overreach at times, but it's for the in the grand scheme of the law, like, oh, the reason why he treated young June like that is because not only because he's Chinese, he's also a criminal. That, so that's why I'm like, it still doesn't justify him. He's still a dick. He's still a douchebag for going as hard in the paint as he did against young June. But I don't know, because like when Leary tried to talk to him, because he's like, oh, where's Bill? It's like, yeah, Bill quit. And he's like, wait, what? You're joking. He's like, nah. Why? It's like, well, talk to the new boss about that. And he's trying to talk to Atwood, but Atwood's like, yeah, I get people struggle. He's like, even I struggled, but he's like, yeah, but I never broke the law. It's like, okay. So Leary's like, oh, so it's going to be that type of conversation. It's like, oh yeah, it's going to be like that. It's like, okay. So that's going to be, I love it. He's like, you're not Irish, are you? He's like, no, I'm American. He's like, well, we can't all be perfect. He's had that similar conversation with someone else. Oh, he had that conversation with Lee. Because Lee was like, oh, he's like, oh, you're not Irish. He's like, no. He's like, why do you say that like it's a deficiency or something like that? So it's like, yeah, it's kind of another person's like, oh, don't worry, Atwood, you're on my shit list. Don't worry about it. So that's going to be interesting to see what that might turn into in the future. Because Leary's trying to help out those two boys. Their dad went to Leary for help. And so Leary's positioning himself with Douglas on, okay, so how do we handle the whole... Because someone had suggested thinking that Douglas was setting Leary up as a potential mayor candidate, but I guess not. They're doing everything they can to back Buckley. Douglas needs a corrupt politician, and he knows, like, right, Buckley is a weasel, so it's like, yeah, he's the perfect person for the job. So they're basically willing to help out with the Thayer situation to get him out of the way. So that, but it's like, right, if we're able to do that, you have to basically fall in on our demands. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how that. Well, we kind of caught the aftermath of that because Thayer called out Buckley of like, right, like, I hope you're happy with yourself. Because even Douglas was kind of like, yeah, you kind of have no charisma. People don't like you. You're very stiff and just like, oh, you basically, you have no riz. You have, like, no one's gravitates towards you. That's why, like, even his speeches are so half-hearty. I mean, when people respond to it, they're like, yeah, I guess the message, but it's like, Thayer, he's young, he's presentable, he's charismatic, he feels like he connects with the people. Buckley is just, to be fair, I don't know if he was always that way, or maybe it's post the war and everything that he lost that kind of made him very, like, rigid in the way he is. He feels very robotic. That's why he's always been more fit for behind the scenes rather than being in front. It's an uncomfortable place for him to be. So, but Thayer had called him out about, like, right, at least I have my family. You don't even have a friend to celebrate with. But it's like, yeah, don't look down upon me because you want to make it seem like you worked so hard for your position. Buckley's like, dude, you had everything handed to you. You never really had to fight for what you are. And that's why men like you will always be outdone by men like me. So Buckley's always got to get in that last word because you're just like, man, it's that thing because you're like, right, Thayer's a good person. We know he's an honest person. So it's like knowing that a scumbag like Buckley is getting like, it's that's just who he is. He has to get in the last word. It just makes you hate him even more. But yeah, after that victory, what did he do? Went home and banged his I was about to say, I mean, I'm sure, like, I don't know if they like label as, oh, we're significant others now. I don't know what they'd really kind of label their situation. I don't know. Miss Archer is definitely going to be interesting to see. I'm curious if anyone put her up to that, like a Douglas or not, or whether that's just her being like, oh, I see the tides, I see where they're going. Thayer's a fad. You are going to be the future, and you're going to be the one to move the needle. You're going to be the one that kind of keeps things going. You're going to be the one with the power in the end. So she's just riding that wave, whether there's sincerity in how she feels about Buckley or whether it's just a means to an end. She kind of made it clear that it is a thing of like, no, I'm going to use you, but I also really do like you. So it's like, okay, I'm winning. I'm in the winner's circle now, because it's like, oh, because they are backed out now. It all is on Buckley. Like I said, I was so certain based on what someone else was kind of suggesting. I think it didn't click in my head, but I was like, this seemed like they were setting Leary up for that, but it could just be in the long run that maybe it's just more the political route he's going down with Douglas. Maybe eventually Douglas will position him in a political situation to help him, but maybe not the mayorship. I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see what that turns into. But once again, Leary catching grief from other people being like, oh, like some guy got beat up by some Chinese people, and he's like, yo, like him and other people in the bar are ready to go to war again, which I love the guy exaggerate. He's like, yo, it was like 12 of them, and it's like, it was 3 people, but he had to exaggerate. Because he didn't want to seem like, oh, I'm a punk for. I mean, getting beat up by 3 people ain't nothing to sneeze at. But I think it's like, oh, I had to like to hype it up even more. It's like, oh, it had to be 12 of them. Maybe just the way they were stomping him out, it felt like 12. But Leary shut that shit down quick. It's like, did you forget what happened in a riot? We lost men, we lost fathers, we lost brothers. Do you want to be quick to do that again? It's like, you're so quick to complain about the way things are, saying I'm not doing enough. The fact of the matter is, with things going the way we want, we're going to have a mayor who's going to push the Exclusion Act, which means the Chinese are going to be forced out. That's going to be hundreds more jobs for you. But you know what, you're going to end up in, and it's like, what have you actually done? You've done nothing. It's me. I'm the one that puts all the time and effort. Like, you're the ones who come to me for help, and don't I kind of help see this through? But all you're going to do is, basically moan and complain, and you're going to end up right back here moaning and complaining. So it's like, you don't do anything. You fall in line. You stay here. You shut your mouths. I'll handle the Chinese. Finally went to Chinatown. It wasn't until he brought it up, I was like, right, this is your first time in Chinatown. It's like, I mean, you've never had any reason to come down here. You never wanted to. And I love, what does he see? He sees the mural of Assam, and like, oh my God. I love that everyone has that response. It's like, My Ling had that response. You could tell it bugged Young Jun at the time. And now Leary has it. It's just kind of like, especially after getting his ass kicked by Assam last season, it rubs even more dirt in the wound. And for him to Assam to have like this parlay face to face is so interesting, where it's like, all right, your boy, some of your people beat up some of mine. It's like, okay. That's not, I don't know, it is what it is. He's like, okay, why don't you hand them over? Which I was like, that's going to be an issue, because we know one of those people is, if I'm not mistaken, that was Yanmin's brother was one of them. I was like, that'd be an issue. But it's like, oh, well, hand us the guys that stole from those shopkeepers. It's like, yeah, but they're already in jail. It's like, well, that kind of seems like that's kind of a no deal. But for Leary, it's like, I'm trying to stop what happened before it happened again. I'm trying to protect my people just like you are. It is this odd thing. There is this like weird respect they have for each other, because they are on opposite sides of it, but there is some overlap between them. It's like, you have an issue with me and my people. I have an issue with you and your people. But the fact of the matter is, we both want to protect our people. So it's like Assam made a point of like, right, your people stay out of Chinatown. And for him, it's like, you keep your people out of our side of the pond. And I even love this, like, this moment of, man, the big wigs would want nothing more than our people to kill each other. And Assam's like, then who would build their buildings? And it's like, Leary's like, there are desperate enough groups out there that they'd find someone to do that, So it's like, there is this like moment, that they had. It's like, that's so interesting of like, there's almost, like I said, there's like this moment of kind of like respect they kind of have for each other, showing each other that respect. So Assam made it clear, like, yo, anyone who crosses over there outside of Chinatown, I need word about it. So he found out about what happened with Yanmin's brother, because him and his, well, at least his buddies were running around town, running their mouths, gloating about it. So Assam, like, basically, like, sunned him in front of everyone, was kind of like slapping the shit out of him. Like, I think he slapped him once or twice, but it's like, yo, do you want to start? He's like, oh, I was doing what you would do. He's like, no, you idiot. You are giving the Irish ample reason, not even ample reason, I shouldn't use that terminology, an excuse to come into Chinatown. Do you know what happened? Let me remind you, like, you probably don't remember because you were hiding in your shop with your dad, but a lot of people died, and if that shit happens again, that blood will be on your hands. So, have I kind of made myself clean? He was like, yeah. So I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be an issue between him and Yan Min going forward. We'll see. But it's like, kind of had to scare him because, you know, it's like, oh, he thought he was doing the same thing. It's like, no, it's not the same thing. You know, this is a delicate balance that both Leary and Assam are trying to keep from exploding. I mean, especially on Assam's front, he's trying to do it on multiple fronts. You know, the reluctant deal he had to make with Mai Ling, also keeping peace between the pond and Chinatown, because they had that conversation earlier on in the episode about Assam is still torn between, like, because after what happened to Father June, he could tell young June is kind of pissed at him because he's the one that is like, right, I should have taken the deal and left, but it's like, nah, man, it was a kid, like, but it's for Assam, it's like, every time I feel like I'm trying to do the right thing, it always feels like it blows up in my face in some shape or form. And he knows that young June, you could tell, like, there was animosity in young June's face, like when he was like leaving young June to be alone with his father. Because I'm sure Assam might have heard about it. Maybe, I don't know, because young June might be keeping that tight-lit, so only people in the Hop Way might really know what's what. But his father June is kind of losing his mind. It might be like a Alzheimer's or dementia type of thing. It might have been like already something that he might be predisposed to, but maybe it got exasperated by the I don't know if I'm using that right, but it, you know, accelerated at the very least by the gunshot wound. Like, maybe the infection just flew to his brain. Like, it probably took a while to get back to town for the treatment, so the infection could have spread. But yeah, like, he's kind of, it definitely reads like an Alzheimer's or dementia type of situation. Like, he's kind of stuck in the past. Like, oh, the Navy's coming for us, we can't fight all of them. Then he's looking for Long Z, and he's trying to fight them. And all the Long Z people are laughing, except for Leong. Leong comes out and guides him back to Chinatown. You can tell that, like, it's hard to say how young June felt about that, because at first he's like, are you okay, Dad? But it's like, oh, your dad's confused. And Leong's like, it's okay. You're home. And he was so calm and gentle. I mean, Leong's always been a decent enough dude. He's always been a pretty good guy. But I think for young June, it's like, right, you're seeing me in this vulnerable moment. You're seeing us vulnerably. The last thing I want is the competition to see us as vulnerable. But it's also like, thank you for bringing my dad home, but I don't like you seeing us weak. Like, for him, I guess he's worried, like, oh, like, either you're probably going to run your mouth off to Mai Ling, which I don't think Leong will, but, you know, that'll probably be a concern of young June's, of, like, it's just going to make us look weak, you know, that it took someone else bringing his father home, even he couldn't do it, but like I said, that he couldn't keep a tight lid on this, that now, in his mind, the Long Z knows about it. Once again, who knows if word of it's just going to get to Mai Ling on her own. I don't think Leong's going to tell her, but it's all about perception, and for him to be like, the Long Z knows, so now Mai Ling knows, and she might use that against me in some shape or form, which I don't think she would, but young June's, he's in the state of mind that he's in. He's very angry right now, so that's definitely not going to help. He's even got, because he's so pissed at Assam right now, two things. One, he went to Yan Min and he was kind of like, okay, so you are going to teach my other men, like two of my men, how to print this money. And it's like, she's like, yeah, but it takes a delicate hand. It could take me months to teach your people. And he's like, well, might as well get started now. I mean, you're the only person that knows like what would happen if something happened to you. So, well, that's probably going to like, cause she showed us some that she has, printed extra money for herself. Cause that hadn't circled back around since we found out that she had taken some, but she's, putting away a rainy day, like, situation to be the moment her dad dies and her brother takes over the business, she's going to leave and try and find a life for herself. But it's like, yeah, Assam's like, don't let Young June find out about this and don't print anymore. She made a promise, but probably after what Young June said, it made her go like, I might have to accelerate my plan. So I'm probably going to start making money on the side, which is going to be an issue, I'm sure, because either Young June's going to find out because maybe her brother's going to find the counterfeit money and bring it up to her father, and that's going to blow up into a situation, or he might be an idiot, take the counterfeit money and start spreading it around, and that ends up blowing up her situation, and maybe Young June finds out about it. It's a delicate situation that's already breaking down, and it's just all like, I think there's going to be one final straw that's, I mean, the camel's barely holding on, and if we're using that metaphor, the straw that broke the camel's back, it's like that camel it's holding on, but it just on one or two more pieces of straw will break. I don't think it's completely broken back. I don't think it's completely broken yet, but it could be on its way. It's on the verge because Young June is venting to Hong about, right, Assam doing all that he's done. He made the deal with Mai Ling. He couldn't just let our deal with the Germans stand. He had to do what he had to do, and now my father's shot. My father now it's losing his mind, all because of Assam. And it's just like, Hong is trying to defend him by being like, right, Assam didn't want to make that deal with Mai Ling. And now it's like, oh, I'm sure it's going to probably piss him off even more when he finds out that Mai Ling invited him to the wedding. That's just going to make that. And once again, we know what Mai Ling's end goal is. She's playing like, let's unify together, but she is going to screw over the Hop Way because she's working with Buckley. So it's, so she made that deal with him. I mean, it's a continuous deal from what they had previously, but modified, after him getting her out a couple episodes back. So I'm sure all of that, when the time comes, is only going to once again, you exasperate what's kind of already the issue between Assam and Young June. Like, it's just, he hadn't fully forgiven him from last season. There were already carryover from last season that was kind of bleeding over into the relationship, and it's just one thing after another. Because another thing is, not only is that, he's also having sex with our counterfeiter. So that causes more issue. And it's like, oh, I had to find out about it, not from him, but Mai Ling. It's like, because now it's like, right, just furthering the fact is Mai Ling knows more about what's going on in his organization than he does. But also it's like, kind of wasn't your business to really know. It's kind of like whatever your circumstances are isn't really everyone's business. But, I mean, he makes his situation public because he's who he is. He's very gloaty about, the sticky that he gets or whatever, right? So, for Assam, it's like, whatever my situation is with Yeonmin, and, that's just that. So, but yeah, he got invited to the wedding. And his sister was like, yeah, bring Yeonmin as well. Like I said, I'm sure that's just going to be, because she already planted those seeds of doubt inside of Young June last episode, and I'm sure this is just furthering that along. It's just, like I said, it's just one thing after another, and it's just, Hong is trying his best to be like, yo, I'm sure, the fact is Assam would die and dice for you. He's like, I don't think he will. Eventually, peace don't last forever. So eventually war is going to break out, and I need loyal soldiers on my side, and I don't think Assam is. And that's the sad thing. Assam is giving so much to this Tong, the same Tong that kicked him to the curb after he lost to Leong. He's done so much for them. He's also done so much for Chinatown, because it's sad, because at the time, Yeonmin's kind of telling him he doesn't have to kind of associate with the Tong. It's like, right, you don't have to be what the Tong wants you to be. You don't have to be what your sister wants you to be. You just have to you are a good person. You want to do the right thing, and that's a part of who you are. Lean more into that. So he's torn in these multiple different directions, and time again, now he's shown everything he's doing is for, right, trying to do the right thing. Maybe it is that naive gumption of the youth that leads him to kind of do that, but he has a good heart. He wants to do the right thing. And that just sadly comes in contrast with everyone around him, whether that's Young June or whether it's Mai Ling. Toy's in this very interesting position herself this episode when some of the women that were liberated by Nelly and the police, he came to pick up his women, but Toy's like, yeah, they're not going anywhere. They're not your women, but they're also not mine. So they're staying here. And led to him falling off the banister and landing and destroying a table. So he's one of, I guess, the tongs that are underneath the Long Z. And so he's like, yo, Toy owes me because he has my women. But Mai Ling was like, no, she doesn't. The fact is, Mai Ling is giving you any compensation at all is more than you deserve because it wasn't her that freed your women, but also they're not, so she owes you nothing, so fall in line. But I'm like, that guy's going to be an issue. Like, Mai Ling might need, Mai Ling kind of thought she was nipping that in the bud, but I'm like, nah, Toy's probably going to have to nip that in the bud because that guy is going to be an issue. But to be fair, Mai Ling kind of dealt with that, so we'll see. We'll see, but I could see that guy, he's thick-headed. I could see him starting shit later on, so. I think, sadly, it's going to be complicated because of, once again, Assam is trying to do everything he can to keep the peace. Sadly, you have Lai following Douglas home. She sees him because for her it's like because she's impatient. She wants her revenge for what happened in Sonoma, but Toy isn't ready to make that move yet because she's like, you're not ready and I'm not ready because like the smoke that would come their way from going after someone like that's going to cause massive issues and that. Assam nipped that in the bud. He's like, yeah, even he's like, eventually it's not going to be able to be held. They're not going to be able to be held off forever. Like whatever issues between like the Ducks and Chinatown, like it's not going to be like this forever, but at least it's not tonight that shit pops off. So, and I think Lai's sadly going to be a contributing factor to that. Understandably, she wants revenge, and she wants it now. And that's where her and Atoy are just in different places of just kind of like, I guess for her, she saw Atoy in that position where like Atoy didn't really fight back like she could have. I mean, she fought back a little bit, but it's like, I think for Lai, it's kind of like, okay, Atoy's not ready for this, but I am. So she's just waiting for her moment to strike when it comes to Douglas. And she's so filled with revenge right now. She's not thinking about the consequences of her action. Cause it's like, right, we used to do this type of stuff all the time. It's like, yeah, but circumstances are different. Cause that was Chinatown, like being almost razed to the ground. I mean, but like destroyed and so many people dying. So, because also Lai wasn't here during that time. She was in Sonoma at that time when stuff popped off. So I think that's also a little bit of that difference of you didn't see firsthand what that looked like. So maybe that would steady your hand a little bit more. But Atoy also got invited to the wedding. And I thought it was interesting the conversation she had with Mai Ling, where it's like, okay, like, Mai Ling's place is like, yeah, she's like, it's very, like, traditionally Chinese. And even Mai Ling agrees, like, yeah, I made this place look the way it did just so it could be, like, something to kind of draw people in. It's meant to make them seem like, ooh, so, appealing and so foreign and oh, this is a foreign culture, and it's just, it's meant to make it seem like such an oddity that they were able to draw people in like she did. But for Atoy, it's like, yeah, but at the end of the day, if you're going to go down a more wedding route and your place is like, aesthetic, like it probably needs to be more American because at the end of the day, we are, The fact is, even if they don't want us to be here, we are here. So kind of why shouldn't we kind of embrace the American of it? I'm butchering because Atoy was spitting when she said something, but I can't remember the exact words. But it's like, right, we don't have to like basically like play up the role of like, oh, like us this, because it's like, right, what did that warrant you in the end? Like, did that work out for you? And it's like, no, the whole like drawing people in. Like, because it's like, why should we have to play into the narrative of who they see us as? It's like, because at the end of the day, we're here. This country's going to be just as much as ours as it is theirs. So why should we play up like, oh, the Chinese of it? Like, we don't have to put on this front for their sake. So, I'm surprised she hasn't gotten her get back against Eliza yet. I was like, please tell me you're going to do it. You need to. We'll see whether that ends up being the case or not. Probably not. a lot of really, really interesting things. I'd assume this. I think the season only has 10 episodes, like the previous seasons did. So obviously, we only got 3 more episodes. So I'm so curious to see how this all plays out. Like, shit's going to hit the fan soon enough. Like, it just with all the moving pieces that are like, you know, on the board right now, and lines are drawn, and it's going to get hairy, it's going to get dicey, and it's going to get complicated. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.